Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is of 2021. I haven't decided at this point which order I'm going to put these things in, but I need an intro for it. And I guess as I'm thinking about it, we're not live either. But who is going to make a new recording just for 2 weeks of vacation? Well, I guess I could use it over and over again every time I do something like this. But I've got another themed group queued up for you. Found a story that I thought was interesting. Only lasted about 9 minutes, but it reminded me of another one. Although I think, I should have just left it the way it is, since at the end of the 9 minutes, I'm like, well, I think that's all there is on this. But then a few seconds later, you discover that I found some more, and I wove them together. And it won't take you through the 2 hours, but it's just a little something to get you going in the morning. And I don't know, just keep you company while I'm gone and on vacation. And I thought an interesting couple of stories. We'll do a couple of these. If I can get 10 of them together, terrific. If not, we'll intersperse a few reruns. Not so bad, really. And I'll be able to keep you company. And I'll feel better during the 2 weeks of my vacation. How about that? If you're worried about feeling guilty about making me work more, I'm the one making me work more. Don't worry about it. All right, here's what I've got put together for you. We'll roll it in just a second. I need like 4 more seconds of recording. You see, I'm engineering it on the fly. All right, good. We've hit the mark. Ready to roll. Okay, are you ready for this one? This is from Vice.com, Vice News, and I'm going to just jump straight into it. I don't know how to preface something like this. The headline on this piece from David Gilbert, dated July 26th, I'm a Parkland shooting survivor. QAnon convinced my dad it was all a hoax. I am still, of course, holding out for bipartisan compromise, in this situation, but that seems pretty incredible to me. The subheader on this one is, I don't know how to help someone that far gone. And I guess I don't either. All right, here's how the story goes. Bill's final semester at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, was already difficult enough. He was part of the final graduating class of survivors of the 2018 shooting, and they all had just marked the 3rd anniversary of the day. 17 people were killed, 9 of whom were Bill's classmates. But Bill also had to deal with his father's daily accusations that the shooting was a hoax and that the shooter, Bill, and all his classmates were paid pawns in a grand conspiracy orchestrated by some shadowy force. And I imagine that Bill's dad simply wouldn't give him an allowance anymore because he was obviously being paid by some global forces for his participation in this story. I can't even imagine how this comes about. I'm curious to see whether there's anything approaching an explanation in this. Bill had worked hard to get over his survivor's guilt after the shooting, but for the past 5 months, his own father has been triggering it all over again. He'll say stuff like this straight to my face whenever he's drinking. Okay, that'll help explain things. You're a real piece of work to be able to sit here and act like nothing ever happened if it wasn't a hoax. Shame on you for being a part of it and putting your family through it too, Bill said in an anonymous post to Reddit last week. Bill first posted his story on QAnon Casualties, a Reddit thread dedicated to helping family members and friends of QAnon believers. And the very fact that we even need such a thing is testament to the problem and its size and scope. Vice News spoke to the poster and confirmed the author's claims about being a survivor of the school shooting. Bill is not the student's real name, as they only spoke to Vice News on the condition of anonymity, citing concerns about attacks from members of QAnon forums
if his identity was revealed. I can't blame him, but I think it was pretty, it was obvious right away. I don't know. Do you think, I don't know any kids of high school age who go by Bill anymore. but then how many high school kids do I know? But they're all, I don't know, they're all like Dylan and whatnot. So, okay, never mind all of that. I'm just astonished. I guess I'm trying to distract myself from the horror of this story. As is true for many who fell down the QAnon rabbit hole in recent years, Bill's dad's descent coincided with the pandemic. It started a couple months into the pandemic with the whole anti-lockdown protests, Bill said. His feelings were so strong, it turned into facts for him. So if he didn't like having to wear masks, it wouldn't matter what doctors or scientists said. Anything that contradicted his feelings was wrong. So he turned to the internet to find like-minded people, which led him to QAnon. But until January, that was as far as it went. Then Bill's father saw a video of Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've changed her name here to protect the guilty in this case. I don't know. You know who I'm talking about. Harassing Parkland survivor David Hogg in 2018 while he was visiting Washington to advocate for stricter gun control. Greene has repeatedly voiced support for QAnon and claimed the Parkland shooting was a hoax. He's a coward, Greene told her I'm thinking about the father again. Greene told her followers. Ever since then, Bill's father has become convinced the shooting his son survived was a so-called false flag event, and that the shooter was really a radical commie actor. Commie actor. I really love it that they have to add that to it. From there, it snowballed into what he is today, believing that the government is able to overthrow an election, then everything else is probably a lie too, right? Okay. Bill is 18, and now that he's graduated high school, he's looking to get out of the toxic situation he finds himself in. I do have options that can have me out before August, which as of now I'm planning to do, Bill said. I've been delaying it because I've felt stuck trying to fix my dad. But Bill said that after he posted his story on Reddit, members of the QAnon casualties community have been able to help him push through that obligation I felt and leave before I completely lose my mind because I'm already halfway there. Over the course of the last 4 years, but in particular since the beginning of the COVID-19 lockdown, the QAnon conspiracy cult has been tearing families apart. And many family members say their loved ones have transformed into different people in front of their eyes. Burgundy-colored T-shirts, the color shirt worn by the shooter, make me uncomfortable, and he used to be so understanding, he stopped wearing it around me. That person is completely gone, and I miss him so effing much, Bill said in his Reddit post. Bill says his relationship with his mother has also suffered. The relationship with my mom is dependent on whether my dad is there or not, because then it's pretty much all about conspiracy theories, Bill told Vice News. The relationship used to be fine, but deteriorating quickly, especially after telling her that if she doesn't start putting her foot down, I'm leaving with no interest in seeing my dad again. But despite the threats to leave home, Bill's mother has not stood up to his dad. It's not really going anywhere because she's too naive to think he'll magically get over wanting to constantly re-traumatize me, and I'm not waiting around for that, Bill told Vice News. Bill also says he's been unable to talk to any of his fellow survivors about what he's been going through with his father. I never talked about it with them, Bill told Vice News. As far as I know, he's only held that belief, at least so strongly, since January. Our last semester was difficult enough, with February 14th marking 3 years since the shooting, along with emotions leading up to us being the last class of survivors to graduate. It wasn't, and still isn't, easy to bottle up, but telling them my dad thinks the absolute hell we went through, where 9 of the victims were in our class, is a hoax, is not a pain I want to put on them. It's difficult enough knowing that belief even exists at all. At this point, Bill has little hope in ever seeing his father return to the person he was before he became obsessed with QAnon conspiracy theories, and even if he did, too much has happened to ever repair their relationship. He'll never stop on his own, because there are always new theories and goalposts being moved, Bill said. I don't know how to help someone that far gone. My guess is restricted access to the internet and lots of therapy, but even if there was hope he'd eventually snap out of it, it wouldn't change my mind on never wanting to see him again. So it doesn't really matter anymore. Wow. I mean, that's it. That's the end of the article. I don't know whether I was thinking that there was something that would somehow make some sense out of things. I don't think that was ever going to be possible, but there wasn't anything anyway, so I guess that's it. I've heard stories of QAnon tearing families apart before, and maybe we can dig up even some more of them, make a theme out of things, but I don't know. I just wanted to share that one with you, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's all there is to share on that subject. Hey, guess what? Through the magic of technology, I've just found at least one of those other articles that I was talking about QAnon conspiracy belief tearing families apart. In reality, of course, it took me about a day to find this thing, but I have found it, and again, through the magic of technology, it can seem like I just had it at my fingertips. Why don't we always do the podcast this way? All right, well, it lacks the excitement and uncertainty of a live broadcast. Well, here's what I have in mind, and there doesn't seem to be any really convenient way for me to check whether or not I've read this thing before. I found it through searching in Pocket with a keyword, and what I'm finding is no matter how many times I tried to scroll down through Pocket, I was thinking I might spend some time actually like digging through the oldest items in Pocket and seeing if there was any interest in reviving some of them. Pocket things that hadn't been read yet, or hadn't been finished anyway. But every time I scroll down and I get to the bottom and I continue to scroll, instead of feeding new stories in, or older stories in to the bottom of the queue and letting me scroll through those, it just jumps back up to the middle of the queue where I was before, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I guess it's just not working today. But I did manage to discover this thing from Mel Magazine. I really don't know what Mel Magazine is. Quinn Myers, though, whose name I think we recognize, has written this piece, and it is entitled, "We Are Your Family Now, What It's Like to Lose a Loved One to QAnon." This, I don't know if there's a date on this thing anywhere, but when I bring up the original, it says 11 months ago. That's not exactly precise, but it gives you some idea, I guess, of the time frame when this was written. The subheader of the piece here is, "Millions of Americans are grieving the loss of mothers, fathers, partners, and siblings to an extremist conspiracy cult quickly gaining power in media and politics." So here we go. QAnon, the right-wing conspiracy cult whose disciples believe President Donald Trump is secretly taking down a global cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles, has become a force in politics and culture faster than Fox News and Eric Trump could jump to its defense and downplay what the FBI called a domestic terrorism threat. The group has uncovered a lot of great stuff, says host Jesse Waters. But as QAnon-centric groups and pages on Facebook grow in influence and magnitude, so does the number of QAnon-supporting 2020 candidates. Not to mention the growing list of 2022 candidates that I've seen elsewhere. Well, anyway, so the number of groups and pages on Facebook grows. The number of QAnon supporting 2020 candidates grows. We already know, of course, about Marjorie Trader Green, and she's actually landed here. Lauren Boebert, probably others. Anyway, that number grows along with new cases of violence, murder, and kidnapping connected to the group. And I guess when this was written, we didn't have any idea that an attack on the Capitol is part of an ongoing insurgency against the United States government. would also take place under their auspices. Part of the cult's indoctrination... Oh, I'm sorry, I've missed something here. According to Marc-André Argentino, who researches online extremism at Concordia University, 1.2 million Facebook users have joined QAnon groups in the 4 months since March. I guess that would have been March of 2020, nearly matching the 1.64 million members that have joined since October of 2017. Part of the cult's indoctrination includes pulling vulnerable people away from their families and loved ones. It's an occurrence so common, it's led to a common refrain in the community for those who say their family won't speak to them anymore: "We are your family now." Embedded in the piece at this point is the tweet from Travis View. QAnon followers have a tendency to repeat the phrase, "We are your family now," when someone is alienated from their family because of their QAnon obsession, which doesn't really support their insistence that they're not a cult. And I guess several examples in the screenshot provided along with this. What does it look like and feel like to lose your mother, father, sibling, or partner to Q? As heartbreaking as it is infuriating, and as scary as it is confusing. According to one man who watched his girlfriend become consumed by the conspiracy, it's like losing a loved one to drug addiction. We spoke with several people still grieving the loss of their loved ones to a dangerous cult. This is what they had to say. Our first story here, titled "My Mom Thinks I Want to Kill Her." Sona, that's S-O-N-A, no punctuation that lets me think it's pronounced otherwise. A 24-year-old in Montana always admired her mom growing up, even though she dabbled in the occasional conspiracy theory. "We've always had a good relationship. Maybe not Gilmore Girls close, but I had a happy childhood," Sona tells me. "My mom was always so caring and giving and would do anything to help anyone, even a stranger." When Sona's mom was in her mid-30s, a spinal injury forced her to retire early. It left her limited in terms of physical activity, but even then, she worked so hard to make our childhood home a haven, even if it meant she couldn't get out of bed for a week after working, Sona says. Despite the excruciating physical pain, her mom walked her kids to school and made sure they were taken care of. My mom has told me through tears that she regrets not being able to do more for us as kids, which completely breaks my heart because all of her kids were so spoiled and had such an amazing childhood, Sona says. Sona was 12 when President Barack Obama was elected, and she recalls the year 2008 being a turning point in their relationship. Her mom began watching Fox News, then Alex Jones and InfoWars. She'd pay Sona and her siblings $10 to watch with her. Still, though, Sona maintained a good faith relationship with her mom. They might not have agreed on politics, but they still made a point to be involved in each other's lives, until recently, when Sona's mom began texting her with links to websites and articles related to QAnon. She would send me multiple tweets a day, some with disturbing QAnon theories, some depicting horrible images of children who were victims of sexual assault, and some of innocent pictures, some of innocent pictures of puppies or baby ducks, Sona says. The unifying feature, all of these Twitter accounts had 3 star emojis next to their names and handles that somehow referenced Q. At first, Sona tried to reason with her mom, responding to the links with counter-arguments and fact checks. Eventually, her mom's only response was that anything Sona sent over was, quote, owned by Soros and therefore bias. Because I went to college, Sona adds, she thinks I'm brainwashed by their Marxist agenda. And despite being financially independent, I'm too young to understand how the world works in her eyes. And then illustrated by another Travis View tweet, QAnon followers are surprisingly open about how their Q obsession has destroyed their personal relationships. 3 screenshotted comments from others are used to illustrate the point. Just by way of illustration, I thought I'd read them to you. Somebody who tweets as profane deplorable. It says, I've lost everyone. During my awakening, I realized my family is part of the cabal. And the hospital I worked at, Altman Hospital, is cabal run. Been a rough time. Hang in there. We are pulling into the parking lot. Whatever that might mean. And then hashtag symbolism will be their downfall. I don't think it will be. Here's somebody else tweeting, join the club, brother patriot. Lost several friends myself, and family thinks I am cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, which he spells wrong. It doesn't help matters that this has to move at such a snail's pace. And then, I guess 2 more here. 2017, I pushed hard on Facebook, immediately demonized at work and at home. I didn't care. Still holding the line to this day. I'll die on this hill. Yeah, you probably will. God bless all the others that have held the line. Answered by someone else who says, many, quote, friends blocked me or became silent. Well, sure. I guess one more that's offered up here as well. I had to leave my spouse of 11 years. He became hostile towards me and all things Q. He claimed nothing is happening and it's a psyop to destroy patriots. He filed for divorce and claimed I was unworthy of support. I'm happier and more fulfilled than ever, with a smiley emoji with some sunglasses on. You get the idea? All right. Months went by. Sona begged her mom to just stop sending articles and talk about something else, but her mom didn't respond. I explained that the articles were causing a rift in our relationship, and I could definitely tell she was withdrawing from me, Sona tells me. I FaceTimed her after dyeing my hair to show her, and she didn't seem to care much. She didn't know that I'd received a promotion at work until about a month after the fact. I told her that I was excited to be starting a vintage shop, something I've wanted to do for years now, but she didn't seem to care about that either, only responding with, wow, you're starting to sound like a capitalist, which everyone understands they're totally opposed to in QAnon, right? I don't even know where that comes from. Sona wonders if her mom suffers from depression and anxiety from her debilitating injury. But anytime she recommended her mom see a psychiatrist, her mom would tell her, George Soros funds certain doctors. Sure, of course. And insist that she wouldn't listen to the advice of a professional. As such, Sona says her mom is mostly sedentary these days, leaving her with nothing but time to watch QAnon YouTube channels or Fox News. She often laments her condition, given how active she used to be, but ultimately she is so grateful to Q for, quote, waking her up, Sona says. Definitely gives her a sense of control, and I know she feels proud of her knowledge and the time she's invested. She's so damn good at having her finger on the pulse. I just wish she had chosen another avenue to focus her skills on. Last week, Sona FaceTimed her older sister to catch up. She hadn't heard from her mom in a while, which was unusual, so she wanted to see if her sister had any insight or thoughts about their mom's mental health. I learned my mom thinks I want to kill her and my dad, Sona tells me. Sona's Instagram posts decrying police brutality and railing against white supremacy were enough evidence for her mom to believe she was an Antifa terrorist. Sona used to call her mom once a week and have conversations that lasted hours, but now she's only spoken to her mom twice in the last 3 months. The last time they spoke, she asked her mom why she believes her own daughter would want to kill her. As a last resort, Sona followed up to that conversation with a long text. I told her that I feel like she cares for her message boards more than me, and explained the absolute heartbreak and loss I feel, and how the stress and strain of our damaged relationship has caused me severe hair loss and excruciating week-long migraines, she tells me. I encouraged her to seek therapy, that my sister and I were concerned about her mental well-being, and reiterated that I love her and would never want any harm done to her, but she simply replied with, okay. The fact that her mom has seemingly given up on everything but QAnon is what scares Sona the most. She's always been interested in conspiracies and paranoia, but this just feels like a completely new level. It used to be enough to tell her that I'm concerned for her, to see a doctor, refrain from driving in the snow, or whatever I was worried about. But now it's as if she is completely disregarding that, willing to lose her daughter because strangers on the internet have her believing I'm some secretive, violent terrorist, she adds. And that's so frightening because I don't know what she's being told. All I know is that she isn't listening to one of the people who loves her the most in this world. Another story is offered up here. I want my loving mom back. Sona worries that because her mom found a sense of purpose and community in the conspiracy theory, she'll spiral deeper into the conspiracy and isolate herself even further. Well, maybe it's not a different story. It's a continuation of the same. Maybe it's the whole thing is Sona's story. The whole thing seems to be illustrated with these tweets from Travis View, whoever that is. By the way, who is that? I mean, I've seen the name before. Just sort of wondering. Father and husband, that's helpful. Tapwater Goblin, QAnon Anonymous host. I guess that's what makes him relevant to this. QAnon, conspiracy theories, disinfo, and other signs of the dystopia. So I guess he hosts a QAnon Anonymous podcast. That makes him a good source for collecting these stories. And in this case, the embedded tweet reads, like other fringe political movements, QAnon is attractive to people craving purpose and importance. People on the 8chan board feel like part of a small group of special people. It creates a sense of significance that they might not be getting from family, career, or religion. And then embedded in that is a screenshot of some anonymous message on the Q boards, basically attesting to that. Now back to the story. I wish I had the tools and knowledge I have now when my mom was first dipping her toes in. I think I could have prevented this outcome, Sona says. I used to cope with my mom's QAnon beliefs by laughing it off or dismissing it, but I've since realized that there's nothing funny about it. She is legitimately distressed, and that should be taken seriously. It makes it a lot easier to accept and cope with loved ones who behave irrationally if you can recognize that they're acting out of fear, not hatred. I know that Q members say that losing friends and family is part of the awakening process, Sona continues, but I never thought it would come to that for my mom. For now, Sona is working her way back into therapy and hoping to plan an intervention for her mom. Otherwise, if I'm being honest, I've just been crying a lot, she says. My heart is absolutely broken. I'm in shambles. I've been through some nasty breakups, but I never thought I'd have to learn to navigate the end of a relationship with my own mother. I really just want my loving, caring mom back. And I think now, perhaps we move on to a different story. QAnon has wreaked havoc on my family, and it's only going to get worse. And this begins the story of Lillian, a 22-year-old in Louisiana, who was running errands with her mother last Thursday when suddenly her mom pulled the van into a parking lot and sat in silence for a minute. She asked Lillian for her thoughts on the president. Lillian answered honestly, saying that she didn't personally follow any of his beliefs. But beyond the seemingly straightforward question, something seemed off. It wasn't like her mom to act so irrationally, let alone bring up a politically charged question out of the blue. But before Lillian could sort out her feelings, her mom went off. She quickly began trying to explain to me how Trump's questionable conduct is all clues and codes to the public, Lillian says. Her mom said that there was a big event about to occur, something that would, quote, involve the arrest of several public figures who have committed deplorable crimes against children, unquote. Well, we've heard that one before. What's more, her mom added, there was a big organization pulling strings behind the scenes in some plot for total world domination that Trump is aware of, and in one fell swoop, the president would dismantle this evil group and liberate the country. The behavior was so erratic that Lillian had to assume her mom was messing with her. I was thinking, is this real? Am I really right here, right now, listening to this? Lillian says. My tepid amusement at what must have been a joke turned into genuine disbelief and concern. She sat there, frozen, unsure if she should call for help or actually believe what her mom was saying. My mother always seemed to be a rational and critical thinker, and being an introvert, she always seemed to sway away from any kinds of conflicts or be openly opinionated, Lillian tells me. So as she was drilling this into my head in the van, asking me to believe her and consider it all for myself and telling me she'll link me articles, I almost believed her. I wanted to. I could see the genuine belief on her face and that she wasn't messing with me. Next, the pandemic turning point. Lillian began to wonder if she'd been so focused on her own feelings and anxieties to notice, or I guess too focused on them to notice what was happening to her mom. Why hadn't she noticed any red flags before her mom was inducted into a cult? Until the moment in the van, Lillian says, her mom showed no signs of being prone to conspiratorial beliefs. She prioritized our happiness and safety above all else. She'd help us with our homework and made sure we got our regular doctor checkups and vaccinations. She tells me, I wonder if that's still the case. We'd disagree here and there on social and economic issues, but it didn't strain our relationship in any way. The turning point may have been the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Lillian's mom lost her job, and feelings of anxiety and helplessness hung over the household. Without work to occupy her time, she became idle and reclusive, spending more hours online than she ever had before. I think I'm in trouble. I can't really imagine what my mom must feel and how vulnerable she must have been on an emotional level to believe something so delusional, Lillian says. QAnon, as a group, seems to have mastered the ways of manipulating and tapping into people's anxieties as a means of indoctrination. I can only imagine that it probably took one or two QAnon articles or posts to pique her interest and send her down the rabbit hole of conspiracy, especially knowing how covert their manipulation can look. Ever since the episode in the van, the situation at home has only gotten worse. Her mom has been more vocal about QAnon, and in a house where politics was rarely brought up before, it's now one of the only topics of discussion. It's wreaked havoc on my family already, Lillian says. My dad is fed up with it and thinks it's absolutely bogus, but the other day, my younger sister brought me a QAnon article of her own. I fear it's going to tear our family apart. For now, Lillian is trying to cope with the family and protect her younger sister from succumbing to the conspiracy theory. I don't blame or resent my mother at all. She was never like this before, she says. I love her to no end, but I just wish I could have her back. So, a familiar theme. Then another Travis View tweet here. QAnon followers commiserate by swapping stories of alienating family members with QAnon. We'll skip the details of it this time. Here's another one. It feels like losing a loved one to drug abuse. After 3 months of dating, Jerry believed his girlfriend was the one. They aligned spiritually. She saw him for him. The two 26-year-olds talked about staying together forever. It was everything he could ask for in a relationship, and his mom adored her too. We meditated together, hiked, and tried to keep positive energy during the pandemic, Jerry says. And up until recently, life was good. Well, 3 months, but okay. But when the QAnon-fueled Wayfair conspiracy theory broke through to the mainstream, everything changed for Jerry and his girlfriend. She started sending me tons of absurd information, and I didn't know what to say besides, whoa, that is a lot of info. Jerry tells me. Clearly, she was upset, and I didn't want to upset her more. And I guess some of their texts are here. I don't know. Let's see what the exchange, such as it is, begins with, "How are you today, babe?" And then, blah, 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 blah. "I'm good," with lots of O's. "Doing lots of research. I think I'm going to make a new Instagram account. I am really inspired to bring justice to children, babies, and fetuses." Oh boy. "I think I may have found my avenue. I don't think many people who are pro-late-stage abortion know that fetus organs are being harvested for pharmaceutical companies, the CDC for vaccine development, you see where that came from, and food companies to make natural flavors and food additives. Yum, everybody loves natural baby flavor. I think we are blindly following these narratives that the media is putting out so we don't have the awareness to stop these companies that they are all in bed with. I'm going to start posting videos during my free time. I think abortion is only acceptable within the first 2 weeks, according to my research. People need to be more proactive about preventing pregnancy and testing early for it versus what has been going on. Oh boy. How are you today, babe? Blah, 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 blah. Oh my gosh. As often as he tried to talk her down, his was just one voice in the storm of QAnon-related information fed to her on her Facebook and Instagram. Over the past couple weeks, she started consuming tons of QAnon Instagram pages disguised as woke spiritual accounts. You remember that avenue being used? We've got plenty of articles still on that. Those turned into meme-based news accounts when she started regurgitating like crazy without giving them a second thought. Which she started regurgitating, I see. Like Lillian and Sona, Jerry has turned inward, wondering what he missed, and if he could have stepped in along the way. She may have been this extreme all along, but I didn't see it coming, he tells me. On one of our earliest dates, she mentioned waking up, which I dismissed as a nod to spirituality. I guess I didn't realize until later what that actually meant. There's another exchange between the two of them, which is equally disturbing. Yeah, well, we'll just skip it for a while, but mind you, it includes mentions of Trump and JFK Jr. The pandemic has only exacerbated her aggression and hypervigilance, Jerry says. She became super isolated during quarantine, and she seemed to be searching hard for why she exists and what her purpose in life is, he tells me. As much as I tried to be there for her, she seems to have found her purpose in saving fetuses, which is a nice thing to do, from being eaten by Hillary, which is not a thing that happens. The cult of QAnon offers the most vulnerable among us a community and purpose. Q devotees share a sense of pride in, quote, knowing the truth, and the more time they put into, quote, research, the more invested they become. We have had 4 major arguments over the last 10 days. I'll try to have a normal conversation, only for her to completely derail everything and spew text after text about cabal, celebs, Q, truth, all the nonsense, Jerry says. I try to patiently entertain it or have civil conversations, but she won't listen to reason or entertain any new information unless it's from a woke patriot's Instagram account. Eventually, the arguments got so bad that 2 weeks ago, she left town to stay with her conservative grandparents. Eek. Next up, support and resources for anyone grieving. Jerry doesn't know what to do now. He loves his girlfriend and doesn't want to give up on her, but right now it feels like calling it quits is the only option. I have tried to be compassionate, patient, and understanding with her throughout this nightmare, but she seems unable to see how it is affecting me and my family, he says. My heart has been breaking as I've watched her mental health rapidly decline. She's so quick to throw away all the real-life goodness in our relationship for some rando Instagram follower who confirms her biases. It feels like you're losing a loved one to drug abuse. You never know if they're going to die, hurt someone, or overdose again and act like everything is fine, Jerry adds. You can't help them because they are grown-ass adults who need to want to change and get help for themselves. After a turbulent couple days, Jerry has come to the conclusion that his relationship with the girl he was falling in love with is over. Sona and Lillian, however, know they can't as easily cut ties with their own moms. It's an unbearably stressful and heartbreaking experience, and for a while they felt alone in their grief. Recently, they've found some help and community in the subreddit QAnon Casualties, a forum created specifically for people who've lost loved ones to QAnon to gather for support and find the resources they need to hopefully save whoever they've lost. And if I'm not mistaken, because a day has passed for me, but only a few minutes for you, QAnon Casualties is where this story, where Bill's story was posted, right? Now I have to tie these two stories together. I desperately wish there was a surefire way to break the spell and break through that fear in the first place, Sona says. But I know it starts with having empathy for them and not dismissing them as nut jobs or bots. Feels like the vaccine situation all over again, but before we had the vaccine situation. All right, my mom is scared, not because of what she's experiencing in the real world, but because she's being told to be scared, she continues. Right now, she is not the same person who she used to be, but I see glimpses. The loving, caring mom who raised me is still in there, and that's enough for me to keep fighting. We've now reached the end of this particularly scary story. Like I said, I think there are dozens of others out there. I don't know if there's anything else we have to add to this, but the fact that this has been going on for so long, and the fact that there is a Reddit forum dedicated to dealing with it is, I guess, remarkable in its own right. Well, pretty scary, and I guess I don't see any end to it soon. They've moved these people to all sorts of acts of violence, and now an insurrection, and now inspired members of Congress in the Republican Party to support that insurrection and say there was nothing wrong with it, and it was all just loving tourists come to hug and kiss the cops, because that's what Trump said. I don't know what to tell you, but there you have it. Pretty scary.
From netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, we'll leave it there once again. Another show in the can and another day closer to completing our obligation to get through these next 2 weeks. Hope you enjoy what we tied together today. We'll be back with more tomorrow and see you live again soon.